In this video, I'm going to show you how any law firm can make more money without spending more money. Maybe you're running ads on Google, or maybe you're running ads on Facebook or Instagram, or maybe you're getting leads from SEO or from local SEO. I'm going to show you how you can make more money without spending more money. I talk to a lot of lawyers. In fact, we've spent over $102 million in attorney ad spend. That's how much money we have managed on behalf of lawyers nationwide. There seems to be this common belief with law firm owners that you launch an ad and the ad will either get you a client or it won't. And if you don't get a client from the ad, then it means that the ad didn't work. Or if you do get a client, then it means the ad did work. But the truth is it's actually a little more complicated than that, because between launching the ad and getting the client, there's several steps that have to happen in between. For example, they have to actually convert and contact your law firm, right? And then from there, they have to be booked on a consultation. Your team has to do a good job signing up the consultation. And then they actually have to show up for the consultation. Just booking the consultation isn't enough. And then once they show up for the consultation, then you need to do a good job of selling them on your law firm and making sure that they actually go from lead into client. And if any one of these pieces is broken, then the ads are not going to work good. And you're going to think that your ads aren't working and you're going to blame the ads. And that's not entirely true. So in this video, I want to show you how you can optimize each of these steps so that more people will hire your law firm and that you can make more money without spending more money. The first thing we're going to talk about is actually getting the consultation booked. How do you get more consultations booked? Well, the first thing is something that I call pre-framing. When somebody calls your law firm, you want them to be in the right state of mind to actually hire your law firm. So a lot of times when somebody calls your law firm, conversation goes like this. They call the firm, they say, ring, ring, law firm, say, hi, I was arrested for DUI, or I was just served divorce papers. And then the person who answers the phone says, okay, let's get your name, your email, your phone number, blah, blah, blah. And then they kind of try to book the consultation from there. But there's something you could do called pre-framing that will make such a big difference and get so many more people to actually want to hire your law firm. It sounds really, really dumb, but it works really well. It's called pre-framing. It goes like this. They call the law firm. So ring, ring, law firm. Hi, I was arrested for DUI. Now, instead of just collecting the contact information, you train the person who answers the phone to say this one thing. You say, okay, well, listen, it's unfortunate you were arrested for DUI, but you made a fantastic choice calling this law firm. Attorney Smith is probably one of the best DUI attorneys in the entire state. So let's go ahead and get your information so we can get you in here to talk to them. First of all, reassuring that they made the right decision calling the firm. And then second of all, talking up the attorney and saying, oh, they're one of the best attorneys in the entire state. That little thing will actually pre-frame the person to be much more likely to show up to the consultation and actually want to hire you. I know it sounds dumb, but it works really, really, really well. Now, another thing that we need to understand about intake is urgency. Success loves speed. There are statistics out there. If you respond to a lead within 5 minutes, you are 800% more likely to sign up that client just because of the fact that you got back to them quickly. And there's another statistic that 50% of people will hire the first vendor that they talk to. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you're consistently fast and you're answering the phone every single time. And anytime a call is missed, anytime a message comes in, anytime somebody DMs you, whatever it is, you get to them as quickly as humanly possible. Because typically, just by being the first person to talk to a lead, you're going to get more clients just because you're the first one to talk to them. Now, the next way that you can get more people to show up for your consultation is to not make it a consultation at all. In fact, I like rebranding the consultations to something else because I always want to prove that I'm different from all the other competitors in my field. And the best way to prove that you're different is by actually doing something different. So every attorney calls it a consultation. They say free consultation or paid consultation or whatever it is, right? So do something different. Call it like a pre-jail intervention session or a family legacy planning, whatever it is. Go to ChatGPT and come up with a new name for your consultations, but stop calling them consultations. Here's a tip. I like naming it the outcome that they're looking for. So if somebody doesn't want to go to jail, that's why I said pre-jail intervention, because we're intervening them going to jail. What you want to do is think about what is the outcome that they're actually looking for. And then you want to name your consultation. Don't use the word consultation. Name your strategy session or your planning or your meeting, whatever it is, around the outcome that they're looking for. And now they're going to see much more value. They're not just going to view it as a sales consultation. And speaking of value, you always want to make sure that you're stacking the value of what they're actually going to get. Well, let's go ahead and book a pre-jail intervention session. And during this session, make sure to bring all of your paperwork because what's going to happen is the attorney is going to sit down with you and he's going to go through all of your paperwork and make sure you understand exactly what you're charged with, what all the charges mean, and all the penalties and potential consequences and potential jail time that you might be looking at. And then what he's going to do is he's going to identify any weaknesses that the prosecution may have in their case and explain them to you, and then kind of give you the next steps of what he thinks would be the best steps to hopefully beating these charges or at least getting them reduced. Now, the reality is, if you're a criminal defense attorney, that's probably what you do anyway. But truth is, most people don't know that. They don't know what actually happens during a consultation. So what you want to do is you want to break down the value and show them all the value that they're going to get during the consultation. This is very similar to if you ever watch those late night infomercials where they're selling knives. They don't just come out and say, oh, you're going to get this knife set. No, what they do is they say, okay, well, when you buy the steak knife, you're going to get the butcher knife, and you're going to get the fillet knife, and you're going to get the sharpener, and you're going to get the wood block, and you're going to get the whatever knife. The reality is they're just selling you a knife set. But because of the fact that an individual offer broken down into its individual component parts is always perceived to be more valuable than the offer itself. So that's why you want to make sure that you unpack, and I call it stacking, the value that you're going to be giving them and what they're going to receive on the consultation. That again is not called a consultation, that's called something else, right? Now, a couple other tips to get them to just book the consultation. One thing, and this seems kind of obvious, but I've seen a lot of law firms violating this rule, you need to do the work for them. I was talking to a client, he's a criminal defense attorney, and he has a chat box on his website, and he was showing me that people are contacting the firm and they're chatting with the operator in the chat box, but they're not booking consultation. I was like, well, let me see some of these chats. And what was happening was the person was saying, yeah, I got arrested, or I got a DUI, or I got charged with assault and battery, or whatever it was. And the person on the chat box basically said, okay, well, when you're ready, here's a link to book a consultation, or when you're ready, call us at the firm and book your consultation. Now, if you just give them homework to do, they're not going to do the work. So what you need to do is you need to book the consultation for them. You need to say, what's your phone number? I'm going to have somebody call you right now. Or, hey, I've got Friday at 2 p.m. Does that work for you? Let's put it on your calendar, right? So you need to do the work for them, because the more work that they have to do, the less likely they are to do it. That's very, very important. And it's something that I see more often than you would believe. And then finally, sometimes you have somebody who's a great qualified lead, but they just don't book a consultation. Maybe the time doesn't work. Maybe they need to talk to their spouse. Maybe they need to do whatever, see if they can get off work, whatever it is. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you're following up with them. If it's a lead that's a qualified lead and they don't book, and call them back and text message them until you get a no. Make sure that you're following up, because if they're qualified, they have the potential to be a client, and you don't want to let that go to waste. Once the consultation is booked, the next thing that we have to contend with is the show up rate. How do we actually get them to show up to the consultation? Because you could book all the consultations in the world, but if they don't show up, then there's kind of no point. How do we actually get them to show up to the consultation? And not just show up to the consultation, but how do we actually get them to show up to the consultation primed and ready to hire you? Well, there's some very easy ways to do this that I like using, and I still use them to this day. The first is understanding the concept that an ounce of personalization is worth a pound of automation. What does that mean? That means that the more you can personalize things specifically to that lead, the more likely they are to be impacted by those personalizations. So one of the things that I love doing, and I tell clients to do this all the time, I tell lawyers to do this all the time, is as soon as a lead is booked, pull out your cell phone, record a 30-second selfie style video, and text message it to them. And it can be a very simple video. It can be something like, hey, Bill, this is attorney John, and I saw that we have a meeting on Thursday to discuss your DUI case. I looked through some of your paperwork already, and I've got a few ideas about how we can help you out. If you have any questions, this is my personal cell, so please feel free to message me back. And by the way, what's the biggest thing that you want to avoid with this DUI charge? I just want to make sure that I have my priorities straight for you when we're going to have our conversation on Friday. Send that message. Now, you could send a generic message that says, hi, this is attorney John. I'm looking forward to our call on Friday. But just the fact that you say their name is going to make that so much more effective. And it takes 30 seconds. Now, at the end, I asked a question. I said, hey, what's the biggest thing that you're trying to avoid? I want to figure out what's the thing that they're worried about the most, because I want to start the conversation now. I don't want the first time that I have a conversation with this person to be when they come into my office. I want to start the conversation before, because that allows me to start building rapport and start building that know, like, and trust factor that is ultimately going to make them want to hire you. So what happens is when you ask that question, a lot of times people are going to respond. I'm a big proponent of creating content on a regular basis and answering questions and filming videos on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all those types of things. When you have a content library, then when somebody says, oh yeah, well, I'm really worried about, I have a CDL license and I'm worried that my DUI is going to, get me fired from my job because I have a CDL license, then if you have content on that, you can send them a video back that you already filmed. Or what you can start doing is you can film a video that is going to answer that question that you can then store in your database and use for future consultations and future text messages and things like that. Because a lot of times, I'm sure you know this, when people contact you, a lot of them have the same worries, the same fears, the same desires. So once you start to kind of build up a database of those, you can kind of be predictable about what they're actually looking for. And then you can send that video that provides them some value to answer some of those questions that they have about whatever the particular case is. Now, this is very important for a few reasons. One, you're building rapport. Two, you're triggering reciprocity because you're providing value to them up front. And three, because they're watching a video of you and they're starting to see your mannerisms and they know what your voice sounds like and they see you, they're going to start to know, like, and trust you. And this is all increasing something called time on brand. Your goal is to get them to spend 37 minutes with you before they actually sit down with a consultation. Now, that might not be possible to do 37 minutes, but any amount of time that you can chip away from that 37 minutes, maybe you can get them to watch a 10-minute video or a 5-minute video or something like that. Something that basically makes it so that they're pre-framed to already liking you, that builds goodwill, that allows them to start liking, and trusting you. That is going to go a long way in terms of getting them to show up for the consultation. But then once the consultation actually happens, then they're going to be much more likely to hire you because we hire people that we know, like, and trust. Another thing that's very, very important beforehand is to send them testimonials, and testimonials that have situations that are very similar to the person who is coming in for the consultation, even down to the particular circumstances of their case. So for example, if you're a criminal defense attorney and let's say you do all types of criminal defense, you do white collar crime, you do drug crimes, and you do DUIs, and you do assault and battery. If somebody contacts you and they say, I have a DUI, and you send them a testimonial from somebody that you represented that was charged with assault and battery, and they give a testimonial about how you represented them in the assault and battery, well, it's better than nothing, but it's not as good as if you were to send them a DUI testimonial, right? And that's actually not as good. Let's say the lead took the blood test and took the roadside sobriety test. So if you have somebody who took the blood test and the roadside sobriety test, and you have a testimonial from somebody who only took the breath test, well, it's good, but it's not as good as if you had a testimonial from somebody that also took the roadside sobriety test. So that's why it's important to be getting as many testimonials from as many different scenarios as possible, because you want to try to match the testimonial circumstance with the person that is coming in so that it fits very, very, very well. And when you do that, they're going to be much more likely to believe that they can help you. For example, I've worked with thousands of law firms. I was an estate planning testimonial to a personal injury firm. And the personal injury attorney would always say, yeah, well, it works great for estate planning, but it probably doesn't work for personal injury. And if I sent a testimonial from a personal injury firm to an estate planning firm, and the only time the testimonials were really effective, an estate planning testimonial to an estate planning attorney. And I sent a personal injury testimonial to a personal injury attorney, and same thing with all of the practice areas. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your testimonials, first of all, you're sending testimonials, you're sending social proof, but second, you want to make sure that you're building a library of social proof that covers all the different scenarios and all the different types of people that could potentially come into your office, right? And this is a building process. It's something that's never complete, but you want to make sure that you're constantly doing this, because the closer you can make a testimonial to the scenario that the lead is facing, the more likely they are to actually believe that you can help them and be excited about coming in, hiring your law firm. Now let's talk about when they show up to the consultation. Now, when they actually show up to the consultation, one of the best things you can do is you can build rapport right away. Rapport is actually one of those funny things because we like people that we have things in common with. So I used to live in Lakeland, Florida. I don't live there anymore, but my wife and I were in Cancun a few years ago, and we were in the pool and we met another couple from Lakeland, Florida. And all of a sudden we were best friends because we're two different couples from the same city in a foreign country, right? Now, if you're in Lakeland, everyone's from Lakeland. There's nothing special about that. Because we found people that we had something in common with, all of a sudden they were our best friends for the entire trip, right? So what you want to do is you want to figure out, how can I give myself as many opportunities to have things in common with the people that come into my office. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can build rapport and show things in common. One of the easiest ways to do it is sports teams. So if there's local sports teams in your areas, make sure that you decorate your office with sports memorabilia. If you were in the military, you can put different things up in your office that symbolize that you were in the military. What about your college? If you went to a local college or whatever college you went to, obviously you're a lawyer, so you went to college. So you can put something up, about the college football team if it's a football school. Or pets. People love people with pets. If you have cats or dogs or things like that, give yourself all these opportunities to start creating rapport with the people that come into your office. Anything that makes you special. If you're really into fishing, if you're really into old cars, whatever it is, you can use those things and you can strategically decorate your office or even your Zoom background with those things. That's going to create more rapport with people that come into your office. I was talking to an attorney one time from Boston, and he was talking about filming videos, and he was asking me, should I wear a polo shirt? Should I wear a suit and tie in my videos? And I happened to see behind him, there was a Boston Red Sox helmet. And I was like, you know what? Honestly, you should be wearing a Red Sox jersey, or you should be wearing a Patriots t-shirt or something like that, because you want to build rapport with the people that you're talking to. You happen to be a criminal defense attorney. Anytime you can be more relatable, then people are going to like you more. And we hire people that we like. Now, another cool thing that you can do, again, with the personalization, remember, an ounce of personalization is worth a pound of automation, is you can have some personalization when they come into your office. I remember I was building a custom home about 2014. That's 10 years ago. Actually, it's more than 10 years ago. And I remember we went into the home builder's office. There was a sign, and it was just a piece of paper that they printed out from a computer, and it was in a plastic paper holder that I'm sure they got from Amazon for $6. And it said, "Welcome, Andy and Chelsea." My wife's name is Chelsea. 10 years ago, I still remember the fact that I walked into the office and they had a sign that said, "Welcome, Andy and Chelsea." I don't remember what we talked about. I don't remember anything about that meeting other than the fact that they had a sign that said, "Welcome, Andy and Chelsea." Anybody can do this. And that little personalization created a memory in my head, a favorable memory that I remember 10 years later. So how can you do that? It's so easy to do. Whenever somebody's coming to your office, just instruct the person at the front, print out a sign that says, "Welcome Mike Smith, welcome John Smith, welcome, Sally Jones," or whatever, right? You can do all of these little touches, all these little things. We call them the inches because they're just little things that get the sale closer and closer and closer and closer, right? All these little things you can do, and they make a huge impact. All these little personalization things. When it comes to actually closing the sale, a lot of times people believe that people love to buy and they hate to be sold. But that's actually not true. What the truth is that people love to buy and they love to sell. What they hate is they hate bad sales experiences. And I can prove it to you. I remember the first time I got an iPhone. I remember when I stood in line for 6 hours at the Florida Mall waiting for an iPhone 3G. This is like, I don't know, a long time ago. But I remember it, and it's a great memory. I had so much fun. I had so much anticipation waiting with my friends to get an iPhone. I was bought hook, line, and sinker. I was sold hook, line, and sinker, and it was a great experience because it was a great sales experience. What people hate is they hate bad sales experiences. So here's the difference between a good sales experience and a bad sales experience. A good sales experience is persuasion. A bad sales experience is convincing. So let me tell you what that means. When I am in a bad sales experience, I am trying to convince you to do something for my reasons. When I am in a good sales experience, when I'm creating a good sales experience, I'm just gonna persuade you to make a decision that you already desire to make for your reason. And that's very, very important because you need to find their reasons. What is the thing that they actually want? Now, here's how you can figure out what the thing is that they actually want. You ask questions. And you ask questions and you ask questions. I want to tell you something that I learned, and this is something that all attorneys need to hear. And this is something that I call the airplane test. You need to make sure that your messaging during your consultations always passes the airplane test. So here's the story of the airplane test. When I was a couple years ago, my wife and I went to Cancun for our anniversary, and I don't speak Spanish. I had never been to Mexico before, so we called a travel agent. And we told the travel agent, "Hey, look, we want to go to Cancun. We want to go to an adults only resort, but we don't know where to go." So she said, "All right, let me put together a presentation for you." So a couple days later, she calls us back. She's like, "Hey, let's hop on a Zoom call. I've got a presentation. I'm going to show you. I found a place you're absolutely going to love." So she shows us this resort, and it's amazing. It's adults only. It's all inclusive. 7 restaurants, all you can eat, all you can drink. Our room is actually right on the beach. We actually had a plunge pool on our room, a private plunge pool. We had our own butler. You walk out, it's right on the beach, and you get these huts called palapas, which are like tiki huts that you can sit in, and they serve you food and drinks and all that type of stuff. It's absolutely amazing. But there's one thing that the travel agent didn't tell us about. The one thing the travel agent didn't tell us about was the airplane ride. Why is that? Because the airplane ride sucks. Nobody wants the airplane ride. Nobody wants to get to the airport 3 hours early and then have to go through TSA and fumble with your passport and check your bags and then figure out where's baggage claim when you land and then go through customs and all that. Like, nobody wants that. What they want is the resort. So you have to remember that your legal services are the airplane ride, and the thing that they want is the resort. For example, nobody wants a divorce. They want freedom from an abusive spouse. They want to start a new life with their new soulmate. They want to have custody of their kids and have a great life with their kids, but they don't want the divorce, right? Nobody wants a will or a trust or an estate plan. Nobody wants that. What they want is they want to make sure that if they die, that their stuff goes to the places that they want it to go, that the government doesn't tax them to death, right? But they don't want a will. They don't want a trust. They want peace of mind. So what you have to always remember is that your legal services are the airplane ride. What you are selling is the resort. You are selling the result that they actually want. You don't sell legal services. You use legal services to deliver a result, but you don't sell legal services. You sell results. When you understand that, then you're going to get many more people that are very interested in hiring you and very excited to hire you, and they're going to be persuaded, and it's going to be a great sales experience because you're going to be able to show them that you can help them get the thing that they want. When you're talking in a sales presentation, there's only 3 things you should talk about. The first is, what is it that they want? The second is, how do they get it? And you should just talk about that a little bit, but you have to show some logic. And then the third, and this is very, 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 very important, is what will their life be like after they get it? If you focus on those 3 things, then you will make significantly more sales, and people will think that you are the right attorney for them. And you very well probably likely are the right attorney for them, right? You get there by asking questions and just asking questions and asking questions. And you want to remember that he who talks the most makes the least, or she who talks the most makes the least. So what that means is you should be asking questions and letting them do the talking. You should not be the one doing the talking. Couple other things to think about when you are in a sales presentation, when you're talking to a client about potentially hiring you. There's a few other tools that we use in our toolbox, and I'm going to give them to you right now. Now, the first is something called price anchoring, because for attorneys, most of the time, your fees are not very cheap. Most of the time, they're going to be more expensive. Most of the time, it's a fee that they were not planning to spend, and it's a lot of money for them. It's $5,000, $10,000, could be $50,000 if it's a serious felony charge, right? Or a complicated divorce. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we use a concept called price anchoring, because if you don't anchor your prices to something more expensive, then they are going to anchor your prices to something cheaper. Let me give you an example of what I mean by this, and then I'll show you how you can actually use it so that you can get way more sales. I'll give you a real example from a real law firm that we used. In 2009, when Obama took over in office, he put a tax on cigarettes. And the funny part is that you can use these strategies for good or for evil. I'm going to give you an example of how they were used for evil, but please use them for good. So he put a tax of 156% on cigarettes. The cigarette companies know that when somebody is faced with a financial issue, that is the reason they're likely to quit smoking. It's not about health. It's usually about finances. So what was going to happen is cigarettes were going to go from about $3.50 a pack to $4.50 a pack due to this tax. Proactively, what the cigarette companies did is they raised the wholesale value, the wholesale price of cigarettes, so that the retail price increased to $5.50. And they did this before the tax hit. And then once the tax hit, they dropped the wholesale price back down. So the price of cigarettes dropped to $4.50. Prices were $5.50 for about a month or so, and then they dropped to $4.50. And because of the price anchoring, because what happened was people were used to $3.50. So then they jacked the price up to $5.50, and then they brought the price back down to $4.50. Now nobody quit smoking because they anchored the price to $5.50 for a pack of cigarettes instead of $3.50 for a pack of cigarettes. Absolutely genius marketing. Very, very evil, but genius marketing nonetheless. As a marketer, I got to tip my hat to that one because that's ridiculous. But that's what I'm talking about, where if you don't anchor the price to something more expensive, they are going to anchor the price to something less expensive. So let me show you what I'm talking about. And this is a real world example. We work with an attorney who does professional license defense, specifically for nurses who are looking at having their nursing licenses revoked. I was talking to the client and I was like, tell me about your sales process. And he said, well, what happens is typically we have a nurse come in and we charge $4,000 for our service, but our closing rate isn't that great because, as soon as we tell them it's $4,000, they kind of clam up and they don't want to spend that because in some cases, that's what they make in an entire month. I said, all right, we need to anchor the price to something more expensive. What we realized is that the average nurse that comes in is in their 40s, and the average nurse also is going to work about 20 to 25 more years. Someone that's, let's say they're 45 years old, retirement age is 65, that's 20 years of work. Now, we did some research and we found that by losing your nursing license, you lose $20,000 per year on average of salary. So $20,000 a year times 20 years is $400,000. So before we actually drop the price, what we do is what I instructed this attorney to do is do that math for them. Explain to them that by losing their nursing license, they're looking at losing $400,000 over the next 20 years. But for $4,000, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that that doesn't happen, or do my very best to make sure that that doesn't happen. Now, instead of tying the $4,000 to their salary, which is basically an entire month's salary, we anchored the $4,000 to the $400,000. And now when you look at $400,000 seems like a no-brainer to save $400,000. And it works really, really well. And that attorney's sales went through the roof when we did that, just because of the fact that we were able to anchor the price to something more expensive. A couple other things that I want to point out that I think are really, really helpful when trying to make more sales. The first is understanding the concept of loss aversion. People are more motivated to avoid losses than they are to acquire gains. That's why that nursing example works so well, because instead of, hey, you can make an extra $400,000 by keeping your nursing license, we actually showed them what they stood to lose. So whenever you're talking about your services, always show what they stand to lose by not hiring your services. Another concept is the concept of away from pain versus toward pleasure. Now, this is subtle, but it's actually very, very important. People are much more likely to let strangers lead them away from pain than toward pleasure. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm walking in downtown Atlanta and somebody's walking around and saying $300 bills, $300 bills, $300 bills. I'm 41 years old. I've never seen anybody giving away $300 bills. So I'm naturally going to be skeptical, right? However, let's say I'm walking down the street and I trip and I hit my head and my head's bleeding, and somebody comes up to me and they help me with my feet. They give me a towel to put on my head and they say, hey, unlock your phone. I'm going to call somebody for you. I'm much more likely to let that person help me because people are much more likely to let strangers lead them away from pain than toward pleasure. So your messaging should always come from the standpoint of taking the lead away from pain rather than taking them toward pleasure. Now, the final tactic that I want to tell you about is one of my favorites. And this is the strategic use of the word but. And this will get you a lot more sales just because of the fact that you're directing the lead's attention where you want it to be directed. So whenever you have two pieces of information, let's say you have one piece that you want them to focus on and one piece that you don't want them to focus on, you always separate those two using the word but. So let me give you an example. So let's say you're a family law attorney and you're in a consultation and you're telling somebody the price to represent them in a child custody matter. And you say, for us to represent you in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to put together a custom plan that is going to allow us to have the absolute best opportunity for you to have more time with your child, but it's going to cost $5,000. Or you could say, all right, so for us to represent you, it's going to cost $5,000. But what we're going to do is we're going to put together a plan that is going to give you the best possible opportunity to have as much time with your child as possible. In the first scenario, the emotional emphasis is going to go to the price because it came after the word but. But in the second scenario, the emotional emphasis and the thing that they focus on is going to be the value that they're actually going to get, more time with their kids, custom plan, things like that. Because people place a bigger emotional emphasis on things that follow the word but. So if you have any information that you want them to focus on, always say the thing you don't want them to focus on, the word but, and then the information that you want them to focus on, and they will focus on that information. If you use these strategies, these will significantly increase the number of sales that you get. It will allow you to make more money without spending more money and ultimately you will grow your law firm and have much better results. Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite tactic that I talked about, and which one of these do you use? And are there any tactics that you use that I didn't talk about that work really well? I'll talk to you guys soon.